long before he threatened over this weekend, the orange bastard, when he threatened he was willing to let Russia, quote, do whatever the hell they want, end quote, against NATO allies. Long before that, European leaders were quietly discussing how they might prepare for a world in which America is not part of NATO. When the United States removes itself, with a Trump presidency, that it has a good chance that would happen. Just like he got us out of the nuclear agreement with Iran. And look what has happened since. Now, even allowing for the usual bullshit and these little phony macho declarations that come out of this orange bastard's mouth at his campaign rallies, where he made his declaration on Saturday about NATO, the orange antichrist may now force Europe's debate into a more public phase. I mean, the foreign ministers and the leaders of these countries now are going to be forced to discuss this, because to observers outside this country and to a lot of us inside this country, the possibility of this orange Nazi getting the presidency again is a very real possibility. God help us if it happens. But so far, the discussion in European media, we don't know what the conversations are among the foreign ministers and the leaders of these countries. But in European media, the discussion is focused on whether Trump, if he returns to office, would pull the United States out of NATO. Good God. But the larger implication of what he was saying, and the person he really wanted to hear what he was saying, was the dictator Vladimir Putin of Russia, who Trump idolizes. He wants to be Putin because Putin has his enemies locked up or assassinated. Putin has been the leader of Russia for 20 years, and he will never give up the position. Putin is this lumpy little dictator who stands about 5'6" or something. But to Trump, Putin is a giant. He is a leader. He's a strong man. And Trump listens to what Putin says and watches what Putin does, and he wants to be Putin. I don't have any doubts about that, do you? So anyway, Trump's statement has really affected a lot of the leadership in Europe, especially after these 3 years in which Joe Biden has tried the best he could to restore the confidence in the NATO alliance that went right down the sewer during Trump's 4 years in office. And Biden has said repeatedly that the United States would, quote, defend every inch of NATO territory, end quote. Biden has said that. But the leadership of Europe, they're not deaf, dumb, and blind. They can see what is happening in this country, in the United States. And they completely understand that the possibility of Donald Trump getting into office again is a very real possibility. And at this point, it has got to be an organizing thought where it concerns these people, these leaders in European countries, because they know that the United States is floundering and that Trump may wind up as president. So they got to consider it. A spokesman for the White House, a guy named Andrew Bates, denounced Trump's comments as unhinged. Unhinged? Okay, that's a pretty descriptive word, but why not just call him insane? Why not just say Trump is crazy? We don't want someone who is criminally insane being president, do we? Well, I guess until that ever happens, so that kind of language, we'll just have to be content with unhinged. But what he is saying, what the orange bastard is saying, has already made an impression on the leaders of Europe, who are now beginning to think they can't depend on the United States to deter Russia after a statement like that. Oh, Russia can do whatever the hell they want to. In Berlin, a member of the German Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee wrote on X, quote, "Everyone should watch this video of Trump to understand that Europe may soon have no choice but to defend itself, and anything else would be capitulation and giving up on ourselves." And quote, the video he's talking about is the video of that Nuremberg-style rally that Trump had over the weekend in South Carolina, where he said this shit. And I, his comments about the military, it's shocking to me. I have a son and grandchildren who live in South Carolina. I travel there quite a bit, and South Carolina is chock-a-block with military retirees. And it's been said over and over again and proven with these polls that the military, for the most part, military members, especially retired military members, tend to support Trump, which I could never understand. Trump is such an asshole and a coward and insults and denigrates people who have served in the military. I can't understand this stuff. I really can't. Anyway, all of this talk out of Trump's filthy mouth is going to dominate, for sure, a meeting of NATO defense ministers that is coming up this week in Brussels on Thursday, I believe. And then the day after that, on Friday, there is a gathering. It happens every year, of national security leaders. It's called the Munich Security Conference. That happens this Friday. And there's no question that Vice President Harris will be there. Secretary of State Blinken will be there, and will use the moment to celebrate NATO solidarity, which has been critical in keeping Ukraine alive as the Russian dictator tries to erase the entire country and kill everybody in the country. But any statement that is made by Blinken or Kamala Harris almost certainly is going to be met with doubts about what this NATO alliance is going to look like by next year at this time, after the election. What's it going to look like in February of 2025? I mean, what's the whole world going to look like if this orange son of a bitch gets back into office? And that reevaluation of states participating in and being a leadership of NATO, that discussion has been underway, it's my understanding, for months, because of what the polls in this country are indicating, what Trump has said so many times about his sense of the NATO alliance and the member states. So some European diplomats and defense officials say, they're trying to rethink the NATO alliance. They have not talked about it in public. And as a result, we here in the United States don't fully comprehend, I don't think, how seriously these other countries, the leadership of these other countries, the defense ministers, the foreign ministers, the presidents, the parliaments, whatever, how seriously they're taking this issue of the United States not being part of NATO. It's been there 90% of my life, probably 100% of yours. I can't imagine no NATO. I can't imagine Trump being president again. Jesus Christ. And in the meantime, although I realize that this package of bills allocating money to Taiwan and Ukraine and Israel has passed the Senate, I think yesterday, Sunday, I guess it passed the Senate, it's going to die in the U.S. House of Representatives because the U.S. House of Representatives is dominated by Christian Nazis. And they are fully in line with the Christian Nazi who runs Russia. So these are surely some trying times. I sometimes think it's a lot more dangerous right now than anything that I bring up on this podcast or anything that you've heard from, someone like Chris Hedges, like what I shared with you during the first segment of tonight's podcast. It's much more dangerous. And there's no reason that we Americans don't understand this, appreciate the danger, and act to prevent it from ending everything that we have come to believe is worth keeping, which is exactly what the orange bastard would do. Trump does not care. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. The Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.